Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about Hetty Feather Season 6. This is the final season of Hetty Feather, and it is quite an adventure to know where we came from in the beginning all the way to the end. Hetty has come literally full circle in her life. She is now 16 years old. And well, a lot of interesting stuff happens in this season. Every episode is called the final chapter, but there's only 3. See, after season 5, they came out with something called the Chronicles of Hetty Feather. There's 2 episodes and I can't find them nowhere. They're not on the BYU TV app. They're not on YouTube. They're not on Daily Motion. They're nowhere to be found. I have no idea where they are or what they're really even about. Then they came out with that Christmas special. And then after a while, the pandemic hit. And so the network had to make a decision. What do they do? Well, the safest thing to do was to end the show. But they only ended it on 3 episodes, and that really bummed me out. There was so much more they could have done in this season than what they did. But what they wanted to do, well, they wanted to re-give everybody a happy ending again, a farewell and everything. Now they did that in the end of season 3, but they're gonna do it again. And you know, for the most part, everybody got a pretty good happy ending. And there's really no solo episodes per like character really, just like tiny arcs here and there. And you know, some people really didn't even get nothing to do, like Edmund. Like Edmund is barely in this season. Hetty, they decided to focus a bit more on her this season because in season 4, like I said before, they did not. And as for season 5, well, I remember a good chunk of what happens, but not everything. Now, after seeing the previously on, I now know what happened to Jack and why they wrote him off. He went to go work for someplace else, being like a head garden person. Which was kind of odd they got rid of him, but you know, I guess they needed to save money and this and that and as less contact as possible. Because for the most part, there are no new characters this season, except for one, and she's only in there for like a couple of minutes, but that's about it. And when I say everybody had their happy ending, I mean everybody, even Matron of all people, as evil as she is. And I'm not happy with them giving her a final goodwill send-off and everything, but you know, it is what it is. And once again, they had to find a way to torture Hetty and stuff. I was so sad what happened to Hetty. It was heartbreaking and stuff. And so with these 3 episodes, they pretty much go like this. Rosamond Calendar is about to give birth to that of her 4th child and everything. Hetty has just written an article for Mr. Calendar and it got published. And she pretty much just talks about like, you know, how it is like in Calendar Hall and this and that. And talking about everybody in there because she wrote like a book. When it came to Rosamond, for whatever reason, she decided to be like jokish and everything and wrote something very unflattering. But Mrs. Calendar found it funny, but it was really insulting and everything. And I'm still not sure why they decided to have her character do that, because that's not really who she is. Anyways, so like Mrs. Calendar, after she gives birth, she passes away and dies. She had that feeling telling George, her husband, that if anything happens to me, give like all the love to my kids and stuff. Like she knew something was wrong with this 4th baby and she passed. It was a really sad and touching episode in the first and one of the saddest next to the one where Hetty's mother got ripped from her arms and stuff. But they handled this death episode a whole lot better than the one, I think, Elizabeth, I think her name, no, Monica, something like that. And so 3 weeks have passed and everybody is still in mourning. Like, it's so sad and touching. They didn't actually show her die. They did it off screen, but they did it in a very touching way that was profound. Basically, you saw her sick. The doctor came, and then all of a sudden you see Gideon out in the yard, and you hear the bells chime and everything, meaning somebody has died. And then you have Constance asking, what does that mean? And then, of course, 3 weeks have passed and everybody is still in mourning and stuff. You see the casket, you see people dressed in black, they're wearing black armbands. Mr. Calendar has closed himself off in his study in pitch black. He does not want to see anybody or talk to anybody. And he's neglecting his kids. Constance has a birthday coming up and he doesn't even want to spend time with her. And it was so sad to see Rosamond die. But what was odd is that Charles is nowhere to be found this season. He wasn't even informed. And not only that, but Emily never even returned and stuff. So I don't like the writing in that. They should have got those 2 stars to come back. As for Mr. Calendar himself, he reads Hetty's article and he is furious, talking about that woman cared for you and you treat her like a joke. He kicks Hetty out on the street. It was so sad to see Hetty in tears. We haven't seen that since the end of season 2. And she is devastated because she is basically homeless now and nobody else knows what happened to her. And after that, he becomes extremely grumpy. You get why he's upset. He's mourning and, his wife was just made fun of. But he takes it out on everybody. So much so that he doesn't pay attention to none of his kids. Constance drew him like a picture and he doesn't even want it. He doesn't want to look at it. He doesn't talk to Edmund or like anybody, but he decides he's going to figure out what he's going to do. He's heading back to India and he's going to give Mrs. Grinford the estate and everything for her to live in. And he doesn't know which of the staff he's going to keep. So everybody is scared because most people now have a promotion. Gideon's now the head groundskeeper. Agnes is like, the acting housekeeper. Sheila's like the head cook and everything. And now they're all about to go home and be on the street. Because, Lizzie and Agnes would just go home, but Gideon and Sheila don't have no place to live. And this is really sad. This is why I said it would have been so much cooler if they would have had a full 10 episodes and stuff. But, Constance is constantly trying to talk to him, but he doesn't want to talk to nobody. And he's going to send Constance to live with her aunt, which she does not want to do. And she keeps protesting too. And Edmund's going to boarding school. He doesn't protest at all. He just takes it and everything. And so after that, after Constance run away and Hetty brings her back, he is still furious, but it takes Hetty, Constance, and Mrs. Grinford, I can't say her name, Grinford, to like talk some sense into him and everything. And it works to the point where he's gonna stay and keep his kids and stuff and keeps the staff. It's really hard, like to put yourself in his shoes because he is in mourning and he literally has no idea what he's going to do. He has lost 2 wives now that have died in childbirth and everything. And I think the first one just died, or maybe she died in childbirth, I don't know. But the second one died in childbirth. I just know the first one died. And, he tries to be the best man he can, but it's so hard because it's like he's trying to be a good aristocrat, a good father, a good husband, and then this all comes down crashing on him. Constance was a joy this season. She is so much more mature in everything. And it's funny because when she hears that the new baby's been to be born, she literally pulls a Wednesday Addams and everything. She's angry, she's grumpy, she's insulting the baby and everything. She doesn't want William, she doesn't want Lily and everything. And so She comes around and everything on her birthday and even holds the baby. But she is furious that she has to live with her aunt and literally protesting left and right about how she's not going to go there. When she finds out where Hetty lives at, she goes and gets Lizzie and tells her, look, man, if I'm not here, you have a job no matter what. So they go to London to find her. And while they're there, some bad people like overhear her because Hetty had pissed some like people off and everything. But they find Hetty, and Hetty at this point has become cold. But like she takes, Constance back, and then all that stuff happened like I told you. It's really cool to see how much more she's matured in just like these 2 years or 3 years actually. Agnes and Gideon. Man, Gideon has gotten so tall. Anyway, those two are a couple now, but he's been neglecting her because of what's been going on. Matthias and Harry are back because they're going to get married. And then, of course, there's the whole Hetty missing, and there's the whole Mrs. Calendar dying thing. Agnes is constantly getting on Sheila's nerves, bossing her around. And so, like... it gets to the point where Agnes literally wants to break up with Gideon because he's just not paying attention to her and stuff. And she feels like he doesn't care about her as much as she cares about him. He literally breaks down and professes and all like, I care about you so much. I love you. And he proposes to her. She's so happy, like, ooh, are we going to get married today? He's like, no, not today, but one day. And it's really nice to see those two together because those two started to bond more in season 5. And of course, they both get to keep their job over there at Calendar Hall since Mr. Calendar is now gonna stay. Mrs. Grenford is a whole lot nicer than what she used to be in the previous seasons. She is the one who has to talk some sense into that of George. She's also more kind to all the servants and everything, and to all the kids. She is like Matron, but not really. Matron's a whole lot more evil. But when she was evil, it was out of desperation because she was broke. But it is nice to see her reform her evil, nasty ways and stuff. And she also cared a lot about Mrs. Calendar. Edmund and Lizzie literally has like no role whatsoever in this show. But Lizzie's a whole lot more nicer. She stopped having that grumpy face. She smiles a lot more. And she's so tall. She is literally the same height as Agnes. And she towers over that of Constance and stuff. Edmund, I'm not saying they really gave him nothing to do. They really gave him like nothing to do in this season, sadly. Jack. So Jack is in the second episode only, and he has a higher up position someplace else. Hetty goes to find him when she's out in the street living in a border house, and those two are really sweet on each other in season 5. So she goes to him for some comfort, but he's happy to see her, but he wants to introduce her to his new girlfriend, who I think he might be engaged to. And his new girlfriend talks like a lot, and she literally tells Hetty, don't take my man away from me and stuff. And so, he has no idea what's been going on because she doesn't want to ruin his life and stuff. But it was nice to see him one last time. It was still dumb. They wrote him off, but it is what it is. The whole Harriet and Matthias thing. So we get to see those two back. And it's so great those two get to have another happy ending. But there's a problem. They can't find a chapel. Harriet becomes a bit of a grumpy fiance where she's nagging him left and right, especially when he goes back to the Foundling House hospital because he wants to use the chapel there, right? After he sees his friends and she sees him playing football. She is furious that he's spending more time with his friends playing football than that of trying to find a chapel, because the chapel in the Foundling Hospital is still condemned from season 3 when the roof collapsed and everything. They still didn't get it fixed. Cranbourne literally said that they don't have the funds and stuff. That's so sad. And so she calls off the wedding and is about to head back to New York. Man, okay, so like Harriet, Matthias, and the lads, man, they have grown so much and gotten so much taller. They're like, their characters are 16 now. And so, like, I've been trying to figure out for the longest time what her race is. At first, I thought she was mixed with Asian, but no, I think she's mixed with indigenous. I had no idea they had British indigenous people and stuff. But, like, yeah, I think that's what it is because she has more of that indigenous, like, facial features and stuff. And they have gotten so much older. And so, like, the lads, man, they have grown. Walter doesn't even look the same, especially with that afro. He's in the army. And also Vince is in the army. We see him again. And they doing that whole Vince is like their best friend type thing again, instead of being the adversary for some bizarre reason. And so, like, we see Ned. He's not in the army. He's a police officer. I'm glad they went back to season 3 because, Ned talked about how he didn't really want to be in the military. At first, he wanted to do the printing press, but then he wanted to be a detective. So they decided to make him a cop. And he's grown too. It's so weird because they were so little back then and they're so much taller now. And we find out what happened to Judd because it's been 2 years and he should have left there by now. But Cranborn says that basically Judd's not cut out for the military. So they have him working the grounds, cleaning the bathrooms and the grounds at the Foundling Hospital. So he'll never get to leave there and stuff. And so, they help repair the inside of, the chapel and stuff. Sheila is pretty much a little irritated at the whole Agnes and Gideon thing because she liked him, but she's now back at Calendar Hall. She came back during the Christmas special because she left in the first episode of season 5 when she lied about being Emily and all this other stuff, and she felt embarrassed, and she was at the workhouse for the longest time, living on the streets. And so Hetty found her in the Christmas special and brought her back to Calendar Hall. And she is the one who kind of talks some sense into Matthias and Harriet and kind of messes things up a little bit. But she's the one who gets Harriet to come around and want to marry Matthias and everything. Because she doesn't want to see Harriet not be happy, which is shocking. But Harriet doesn't want to get married because there's no chapel and Hetty's not there. But then, what's her name? Sheila finds Hetty and stuff. So Sheila really saved the day. But what was more shocking is that when she went to the Foundling Hospital, they decided they're going to give her a job in the kitchen, which is shocking because at first she didn't want to be there, then she did, and then she didn't. But she said she'd rather be there with the children than a bunch of rich people and stuff like that. And because she doesn't get bossed around as much by Agnes. So in a way, she kind of had a happy ending, kinda, and stuff. As for Matthias and Harriet, they did get married and everything, but they don't have their ticket to go back to America. Why? Well, it's all because of the matron. After Hetty left and started living in the border house, she was outside near Jack's place, and all of a sudden, because of plot armor, she sees Matron hiding in the bushes. Matron is literally on the street. We saw Matron in the Christmas special. Somehow she has escaped prison, but they don't explain how. And when she escaped in the Christmas special, she was still evil, kinda, but she was taking care of orphan kids on the street. But they were like her gang of pickpocketers and stuff. And so now she doesn't have that, and she owes some scary people some money. So nice that Hetty is, she lets her stay with her. But Matron steals her money to try to pay those guys off, but Hetty scares those guys off. Hetty has had a metamorphosis this season. She helping out her worst enemy possible and everything. But Hetty has become cold. And so after a while, they have a chat, and Matron has really redeemed herself, which I hate the most. Matron stole Harriet's ticket to New York, and Hetty was going to try to stop her until Matron pretty much saw, look, this is my last chance of happiness. I need to make a fresh start and all this other stuff, and y'all will never see me again. So she lets her go and she goes to New York. I hate this so much. Matron is the devil. Matron is a very evil woman who throws kids in a trench, lock them in rooms, and starves them overnight. She has sold kids to that of slave labor. And she is a horrible, terrible person who will literally rip a child from their parents' arms. She does not deserve happiness, but the show has decided to do it. And just like in the books, Hetty forgave that of Sheila, so they decided, all right, not only is she going to forgive Sheila in the show, but she's going to forgive her worst enemy of that of the matron. As for Hetty, like I said, has went through a metamorphosis. It was heartbreaking to see her get kicked out of Calendar Hall. She's now well, I guess you consider a British adult. You know, I don't consider 16 as an adult, but hey, it's their rules, you know. She's living on her own in a boarding house. She keeps talking about how she wants to be a writer and she's going to take charge of her own life. No longer is she ever going to be a servant. She plans on leaving London and going to be with her mother, Ida. Now, Ida abandoned her for the second time in season 4. So I guess the writers are like, screw it, they'll forget. I don't know what it is about London. I'm not British. I don't know anything about England, London, Britain, any of that stuff. But every British show I have ever seen that depicts London, whether it's the modern day or back in the old days, everybody hates London for some bizarre reason. Anyways, so she's kind enough to forgive Matron and help her out. She returns, like, you know, Constance back to her father and smooth things over with Mr. Calendar to where he forgives her and she forgives him. But she is done being a servant. And she literally tells somebody, like, what was it? When she first told, like, Sheila and all of them, like, she's done caring about everybody else and worrying about everybody else's problems. She's only going to worry about herself. But then, you know, she has that change of heart, and then she showed up at Harriet's wedding. But she planned on slipping out without saying goodbye to anybody until Gideon saw her. There, she said her goodbyes to everybody and literally told everybody that she is going to be her own person. She is going to be a writer, and, you know, she's going to live with her mother, and if they want to visit, they can and everything. And we see Hetty Feather leave the Foundling Hospital, you know, and walking into the streets, and it is so full circle, man. She has, because she has came from literally nothing, and I mean nothing, going on all these like adventures and all this turmoil and everything, and all these obstacles and stuff, and having happiness always ripped from her arms, and all she ever wanted was like family and be a writer and, you know, and be successful and everything. And she's gonna go make something of herself. Like she said, this is a new chapter in her life. Sadly, this show got canceled. And I really wish there was another season, because they could have, like, I'm curious, what would Hetty do now, you know what I'm saying? And, like, what other obstacles does she have in life? And, you know, will she ever find her mother again? And, you know, there's just so much more they could have went with, but of course the pandemic screwed all that up. And, you know, you gotta give it up for that of the actress Isabel Clifton, because she is amazing in this show. 2 people have been nominated and won awards for this show, but she has been nominated for none, and she hasn't won anything, and it's quite a shame because she was so good in this role. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.